It is midnight. The house is dead silent. The glow of the street lamp barely cuts through the living room window. Your dog is fast asleep on the rug. Suddenly, they sit up. Their eyes lock onto a perfectly blank, empty corner of the wall. Their posture stiffens. Their ears pivot like dual radar dishes. And then comes the sound. A low, closed-mouth vocalization. The boof. You turn on the lights. You scan the room. There is absolutely nothing there. Just empty space. You stare back at your dog. And your dog stares back at the wall, completely transfixed by an invisible entity. It sends a primal shiver down your spine. Because the house is secure, the doors are locked. Yet your dog is acting as if an intruder is standing exactly 2 feet in front of them. The air feels heavy, the silence feels oppressive, and the phantom bark continues. Boof. Pause. Boof.
Most people assume this is a supernatural event. They joke that the dog is seeing ghosts. Or worse, if the dog is older, they assume their beloved pet is just going a little crazy in their old age. They assume the dog's mind is slipping into hallucination. But behavioral neuroscience tells a completely different story. Because this isn't just a quirky habit, it is a profound biological calculation happening in real time. The problem lies in our own human arrogance. We judge our dogs based on our own biological limitations. Because we cannot see or hear a stimulus, we arrogantly assume that the stimulus simply does not exist. But we live in a muted sensory deprivation tank compared to the vibrant, chaotic world our dogs inhabit. When your dog barks at nothing, they are actually barking at something highly specific. You are just completely deaf to it. To understand the phantom bark, we must first analyze the psychology of the sound itself. Why the boof? Why not a full-throated roar or a frantic whine? In canine behavioral ecology, vocalizations are highly nuanced tools. A full bark is an active alarm. It says, "The threat is here and I am engaging." A growl is a promise of violence. But the closed-mouth boof is entirely unique. It is the canine equivalent of whispering, "Did you hear that?" Behaviorists classify the boof as an orienting response. It is a low-level alarm bark. When the dog lets out this sound, their brain has detected an environmental anomaly. The dog's amygdala, the brain's emotional threat processing center, has been activated. But the threat level is ambiguous. It is not high enough to trigger a full fight or flight sequence. Instead, it triggers an information-gathering sequence. The dog freezes, and the biological radar turns on. This is where the sheer mechanics of the canine body take over. A dog's external ear, the pinna, is controlled by approximately 18 individual muscles. Humans only have 6, and most of ours are useless. These 18 muscles allow the dog to tilt, rotate, raise, and lower their ears entirely independently. When the dog hears a faint sound, they move these biological satellite dishes to capture the sound waves, funneling them down a long, L-shaped ear canal. This L-shaped structural design is an evolutionary masterpiece. It allows dogs to pinpoint the exact origin of a sound in a fraction of a second. They can calculate the distance and trajectory of an acoustic anomaly before you have even blinked. So when they are staring at a blank wall, they aren't guessing. Their auditory mechanics have locked onto a coordinate. And because of their frequency range, that coordinate is loud. Let's look at the hard data. According to compiled neurophysiological research from Louisiana State University, the average healthy human hearing cuts off around 20,000 hertz. As we age, that number plummets. Most human adults cannot hear anything above 15,000 hertz. But a dog? A dog's auditory spectrum extends to a staggering 60,000 hertz. This means the acoustic world of a dog extends vastly higher than ours. They are intercepting sound waves that we cannot even mathematically comprehend without specialized equipment.
So what lives in that high-frequency space? What is happening inside that blank wall? The most common scientific culprit is biological activity. Ultrasound. Mice, rats, squirrels, and bats emit ultrasonic vocalizations to communicate. A mother mouse inside your drywall communicates with her pups using chirps and squeaks that register between 30,000 and 50,000 hertz. To a human, the wall is perfectly silent. To the dog, the wall is alive, with a cacophony of screaming. Psychologically, this puts the dog in a highly agonizing position. Dogs are predators by nature. Their predatory sequence, search, stalk, chase, grab, bite, is hardwired into their neurology. When they hear prey inside a wall, the search and stalk phases are instantly activated. But they are prevented from completing the sequence because the prey is hidden behind impenetrable drywall. This thwarted predatory drive results in immense frustration, arousal, and the phantom boof. But it isn't just mice. Modern homes are saturated with what veterinary behaviorists call electronic smog. Wi-Fi routers, smart speakers, and the power supplies of LCD televisions contain tiny components that vibrate at ultrasonic frequencies. Have you ever plugged in an ultrasonic pest repellent? Those devices emit sounds at 40,000 hertz. To a dog, living in a house with a pest repellent is akin to a human living in an apartment with a smoke detector that never stops blaring. A landmark study published in the journal PLOS One explored the hidden triggers of canine noise reactivities. The results were shocking. High-frequency electronic noise pollution, sounds invisible to human ears, was directly linked to elevated baseline anxiety in domestic dogs. Their environment is overwhelmingly loud. When a water heater cycles on and emits a piercing high-frequency whine, your dog wakes up in a panic, and you sleep right through it. Because this isn't just psychology, it's chemistry. Chronic exposure to uncontrollable, invisible noise is a known biological stressor. According to research in Frontiers in Veterinary Science, this acoustic stress elevates cortisol levels. It activates the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axis. The dog develops a baseline state of hypervigilance. Their sleep architecture is completely shattered. They become jumpy, and the phantom barking at midnight becomes a nightly routine. While ultrasound accounts for the high end of the auditory spectrum, we must also plunge into the extreme low end. Infrasound. These are massive, slow-moving sound waves below 20 hertz. Humans cannot hear them, but dogs can feel them. This shifts the science entirely away from the auditory system and directly into the somatic and vestibular systems. The dog is no longer just hearing the threat. They are feeling it. According to extensive literature in the Merck Veterinary Manual, dogs are exquisitely sensitive to barometric pressure. When a storm system approaches, the weight of the air in the atmosphere pressing down against the earth drops rapidly. Human bodies barely register this, but a dog's inner ear is structurally designed to be highly sensitive to pressure equilibration. When the pressure drops, the dog physically feels the atmosphere shift. Evolutionarily, this is a masterpiece of survival biology. A dog's wild ancestors were crepuscular hunters. Their survival literally depended on detecting distant weather systems. A rapid pressure drop precedes severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, and blizzards. A wolf that didn't feel the pressure drop froze to death. Therefore, a dog is genetically hardwired to feel intense anxiety when the air pressure changes. It is a biological warning siren. But it goes deeper than weather. Infrasound is also generated by tectonic shifts. Earthquakes miles below the surface. Heavy industrial machinery miles away. A dog lying on the floor can feel these low-frequency vibrations straight through the bones of their jaw and chest. From the dog's perspective, the house is suddenly humming with an immense, deep energy. The dog sits up. They stare into the dark. They boof, because the earth is moving. And we cannot discuss canine atmospheric sensitivity without discussing smell. When barometric pressure drops, it fundamentally changes the way odors travel. Lower pressure allows trapped scents to bloom. If a distant storm is brewing 20 miles away, the pressure drop pushes the scent of ozone and rain directly into your neighborhood. The dog feels the pressure in their ear, hears the infrasonic rumble, and smells the ozone. It is a massive sensory event. You feel nothing. Dogs also possess an accessory olfactory system, the vomeronasal organ located in the roof of their mouth. It is dedicated entirely to detecting chemical signals and pheromones. When a dog stares into space and lets out a low boof, they might literally be tasting the air. If a female dog in heat walked down the street 3 hours ago, her chemical ghost is still drifting through the cracked window. The dog's brain lights up. The human remains oblivious. This brings us to a massive behavioral paradox. Pet owners often notice that this phantom barking behavior dramatically increases as a dog gets older. Logic would dictate that an older, deafening dog would bark at nothing less often, because they can't hear anything, right? Wrong. The biological reality of canine aging defies basic logic, but it makes perfect emotional sense. The older the dog gets, the more terrifying the unseen world becomes. Welcome to Hyperacusis. As dogs age, they do not lose all their hearing at once. They typically lose their mid-range frequencies first. This happens to be the exact frequency where human voices reside. So they seem deaf to you because they stop responding to their name. But their brain overcompensates. It dials up the sensitivity to high-frequency sounds. The house goes completely silent to them, except for the piercing 40,000 hertz scream of the refrigerator compressor. It is psychological torture. Imagine living in a completely silent void, but suddenly, an inescapable, high-pitched electronic whine cuts through the darkness. Because the comforting background noise of the house is gone, this high-pitched sound becomes overwhelmingly prominent. The senior dog wakes up. They are confused. They are irritated by this singular noise. They stare at the wall. They boof. They aren't going crazy. Their aging brain is simply amplifying the worst sounds. But here is where the science takes a dark turn. Here is the vital warning every pet owner must hear. If your senior dog begins staring at walls and barking at nothing, it is not always an acute sensory input. A sudden, unexplained increase in this behavior can indicate a devastating neurological collapse. It is a condition recognized by the Ohio State University Veterinary Medical Center. It is called Canine Cognitive Dysfunction, the canine equivalent of Alzheimer's disease. Canine Cognitive Dysfunction, or CCD, is a neurodegenerative disorder. It is characterized by the toxic accumulation of beta-amyloid plaques inside the dog's brain. These plaques literally suffocate the neurons. When a dog is suffering from CCD, they aren't hearing an ultrasonic mouse in the wall. They are hallucinating. Their spatial memory is failing. They are standing in the living room they have lived in for a decade, and they are completely lost. Veterinarians use the acronym DISHA to diagnose this decline. Disorientation, interactions changing, sleep-wake cycle disruptions,
house soiling, and activity level changes. A dog with CCD will pace all night long. Their circadian rhythm is destroyed. They will walk into a corner of the room, stare at the intersection of the two walls, and forget how to back out. They let out a confused bark because the architecture of their own mind is crumbling.
So how do you tell the difference? How do you differentiate between a dog hearing an ultrasonic frequency and a dog suffering from dementia?
You must look at the body language. A dog barking at a real, unseen sound will exhibit highly alert body language. Their ears are swiveled. Their nose is twitching. Their eyes are sharply focused on a target. A dog barking due to CCD will exhibit confused body language. Their head hangs low. Their gaze is totally vacant.
Understanding why your dog is barking at nothing is only half the battle. The other half is knowing how to protect them. According to protocols from VCA animal hospitals, if a dog is constantly startled by ultrasonic sounds or pressure drops, it severely degrades their quality of life. From a psychological standpoint, how do we treat an animal that is reacting to a world we cannot perceive? The first line of defense is environmental masking. You must change the acoustic space. White noise machines are good, but brown noise is better. Brown noise emphasizes lower acoustic frequencies. It is incredibly effective at masking the subtle infrasonic rumbles of distant traffic or shifting weather. Furthermore, you must aggressively unplug non-essential electronics in the room where the dog sleeps. Remove the routers, unplug the LCD screens, eradicate the electronic smog. Often, removing this invisible noise instantly cures the phantom barking. Clinical studies in applied animal behavior science highlight the power of psychoacoustics. Specialized classical music designed for dogs lowers their resting heart rate. It mathematically removes high-frequency peaks that agitate the animal. If your dog is a victim of hyperacusis, filling the silence of the home with psychoacoustic music gives their brain a soothing anchor. It blocks the terror of the 40,000 hertz refrigerator hum. It gives them peace. But what if they are reacting to barometric pressure drops? You cannot mask the physical weight of the air. Here, we must use classical counterconditioning. We must change the dog's emotional response to the trigger. When the storm approaches, the pressure drops. The amygdala signals a threat. We want that pressure drop to trigger joy instead. The moment the dog starts pacing and boofing before a storm, immediately introduce a high-value reward. A frozen chew, a massive jackpot. The goal is neurological rewiring. Over months of consistency, the dog's brain will associate the terrifying physiological feeling of a pressure drop with the arrival of their absolute favorite things. The biological anxiety is replaced with eager anticipation. The storm is no longer an invisible monster creeping over the horizon. It is a dinner bell. This is how you conquer an invisible psychological fear. But be incredibly careful. One of the biggest mistakes owners make is inadvertently reinforcing the phantom bark. When the dog lets out a boof at midnight, the owner wakes up. They walk out, they pet the dog, they say, "What is it, boy?" They take the dog outside to check the yard. From the dog's perspective, their behavior has just been massively rewarded. They alerted the pack leader appeared, and they went on a midnight patrol. You just validated the alarm. If the dog is not in a state of sheer panic, the best psychological approach is calm dismissal. Acknowledge the dog with a gentle, sleepy, "I hear it, go to sleep," and do not make a fuss. This communicates to the dog that the pack leader has registered the anomaly, analyzed the data, and deemed it a non-threat.
It gives the dog psychological permission to stand down from sentinel duty. You carry the burden of safety so they don't have to.
For highly sensitive dogs, you must create a designated sensory haven, a crate covered with a heavy, sound-dampening blanket, located in an interior, windowless room where barometric shifts and infrasonic rumbles are buffered by the heavy architecture of the house. Utilize synthetic appeasing pheromones. These chemical signals bypass the auditory system entirely, sending a direct message of profound safety directly to the brain. The next time your dog sits up in the dead of night, stares into the dark abyss of a silent room, and lets out a cautious boof, resist the urge to joke about ghosts. Do not assume your dog is losing their mind. Instead, take a moment to marvel at the biological masterpiece sitting on your rug. Your dog is interacting with a hidden, breathtaking tapestry of the physical world, a world that hums, vibrates, and shifts just beyond the very edges of our human comprehension. They are intercepting the high-frequency communications of wildlife. They are feeling the subtle, heavy drop of the atmosphere miles away. They are sensing the deep, infrasonic vibrations of the earth itself. The phantom bark is not a problem to be suppressed. It is a profound, ancient communication. It is a reminder that, while we share our homes with our dogs, they inhabit a broader, wilder, and immensely more vibrant reality. Your dog is the ultimate evolutionary sentinel. They carry the weight of the invisible world so you can sleep in peace. Have you ever caught your dog staring at a blank wall at midnight? What did you think was actually there? Tell me in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe, because in the next video, we're breaking down exactly why your dog sighs heavily when they lay down. And the neurological science behind that simple breath is even stranger and more heartbreaking than you'd ever expect. See you next time.